Okay. It's Friday the 24th, and we are post-Brexit. So I don't know what the meal is that comes after Brexit, because I always call it breakfast. Anyway, maybe this is the meal. Okay, I'm going to call this meal Brexit, because I think that's what that word sounded like, was how maybe a 5-year-old mispronounces breakfast. I mean, I can't believe that global media used this word jumble to describe it. Well, really, you know why they did it? They called it Brexit because they couldn't call it European clusterfuck. But we'll leave that alone. Anyway, I'm making veggie dogs. We have veggie dogs and sauerkraut and mustard. We're going to shove them in our face. So, from now on, anytime I'm making veggie dogs and sauerkraut, I'm going to call it Brexit. That's the name of the meal. Brexit. Cold veggie wieners. Oh, you know, when I was a kid, this is a true story. When I was a kid, I loved hot dogs. And I still love hot dogs. And becoming vegetarian, which I did about 12 years ago now, the hardest thing was hot dogs. And it wasn't just because hot dogs are so tasty and so easy to make, but because they're also nostalgic and they're sentimental. And, you know, I mean, you have hot dogs on the barbecue when you're having a party with your family and watching fireworks and laughing and having a good time and drinking beer outside, right? Anyway, I always loved hot dogs. When I was a kid, my mom has pictures of me standing outside with all the other kids, and I have a cold wiener, I have a cold hot dog wrapped in a paper towel. All the other kids have a popsicle. So I really love hot dogs. And so when I became vegetarian, it was hard because I couldn't find a good veggie dog. They were all kind of nasty, and I'm like, okay, if this is what veggie dogs are, then I just have to accept that I'm never going to have a hot dog again. And then, I guess it was about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, I found Yves. I don't know, let me see if I can find the wrapper. Where did I put the wrapper? Yeah. Yves, if you please. I mean, meatless jumbo dogs. Trust me, it's not an Oscar Mayer Frank. It's not a Hebrew National. Which, how do they get away with calling hot dogs Hebrew Nationals? I mean, anyway. Yeah. Yves, if you please. Veggie dogs. These are the best ones I found. They're good. Oh my, I need some hot dogs. We're gonna have Brexit.
What's amazing is that
so today I was feeling kind of floofy, so I put on one of my floofy dresses, and this dress, let's stand up and give you. This dress is one of the ones that I have made, and it is based on a Verda pattern, and I've made a number of these dresses, and this one, among all of them, is unique for a couple of reasons. One is that I actually made yardage first out of scraps of silk that I had acquired from somebody's garage sale, and sewn them all together, made yardage, and then cut out the pattern. And then the other reason why this dress is unique is because it is featured in my book, Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow, Slow Fashion in My Own Style Spring 2015 collection. And, you know, I've been making clothes for a long time. And, yeah, let me find the page here. Here it is. Here's the page with me in the dress. Been making clothes for a long time, and I don't make them just for that year. You know, I made this dress in I actually made this dress in late 2014, and then wore it a lot in 2015, and I'm still wearing it now in 2016. And there's no reason why you can't do that. I don't understand why fashion trends or fashion cycles are so short. There's so many good things that kind of go out the window real quick because there's this like need to have a brand new trend every season, every year. And you know, that really doesn't do much to help with our sustainability issues in industry now, does it? Or our sustainability issues in day-to-day life, you know. This dress has recycled fabrics in it, and I can wear it for multiple seasons. It's not something that is dated, you know. This is kind of a timeless style. Like I said, it's based on a Berta pattern, which I talk about in this book here. It's Berta this isn't Berta, this one's McCalls. This one's McCalls M6113. And it's considered an easy pattern, and I'd like to know how they decide what's easy and what isn't easy, because there's a couple. I mean, cutting this pattern out was simple. It goes together. It's easy to see how the pieces go together. Yes, you don't have to do. I mean, the instructions are fairly self-explanatory, but the fabrics that you have to use for this dress to hang properly, which are silks and charmeuse and georgette and things like that, or even jersey knit, double interlock knit, they're difficult to work with. And there's casings that go in the back of the bodice that aren't particularly easy when you're working in those fabrics. So, you know, if you're new to sewing or making garments or whatever, you know, I suggest doing your first version of a new pattern, even if it says that the pattern's supposed to be easy, doing the first version of the pattern in a inexpensive fabric, whether it's muslin or just some scrap or whatever it is. And sometimes, you know, when you're using scraps, you get an interesting piece at the end anyway, and then that's a cool thing. Then you have a cool thing, but I've made the mistake of trying new patterns with the fancy material that I wanted the end garment in, and ended up with a mess because I should have made a model first. Especially like if you're taking two patterns and putting them together, which I talk about in the book. And when I was making this book, I wanted to create something that was indicative or referenced magazine spreads. So like when you go through, there's a lot of pictures, and then the way that things are labeled are very similar to the way you would see things labeled in a fashion magazine like Vogue. You know, it has the name of the piece and where the photo's taken, and you know, all of the items that are featured in the photo, and it was all done on site. This book, Omar photographed this for me one time when we were staying at a B&B. It was at the Elk Cove Inn and Spa in Elk, California, on the Mendocino coast. It was a very, very lovely place, and very relaxing. And Mendocino is a great little town if you've never been. It was a lot of fun putting this book together, and I think it offers inspiration and ideas. And you know, it's not just see that some photos of some clouds here, and some ocean bits and pieces here, and these are things that inspired, in particular, the dress I'm wearing right now. The fabric, I don't know if you can see, but the fabric, it's a double lock weave on the silk. It's like a jacquard. I guess we call it jacquard weave, but it's a cloud print. And so it's ocean colors. So this dress was inspired, very much by the beach. by the beach, and so I have photos that relay that. And oh, there's a pair of pants in here. These pants with the French cotton lace legs on them. I tore these pants recently, just on the front. I don't know how it happened. It's not like it wasn't on a weight-bearing seam or anything. It wasn't in the crotch or by the zipper. Or that was all fine. The tear is on the front of the leg. I'm like, how did that happen? How did I do that? I have no idea. But if I can't repair it, I'm not sure I'm ever going to be able to wear those pants again. I have worn them a lot, so they've gotten there. I have gotten some wear out of them, but it's a bummer because I really like them. They go with all kinds of things. But you know, putting together patterns. Here's one. This jumper, and actually this past spring, Fendi had a number of garments with a very similar shape and color scheme to this piece. I think I have a photo comparison I can show you to do that, but this is actually a combination of two patterns that aren't even patterns from the same company. So you know, this takes a little finessing to do. The two patterns that this came from are a Berta pattern and a Decades of Style pattern. Now Berta is an international patterning company based out of Germany, I believe, and they've been around for forever. Decades of Style, on the other hand, is a newer company, and it's actually a local woman, and they are new patterns that are based on vintage patterns and styles. So the pant part is from the Decades of Style, whereas the blouse part that's connected to it, because this is a jumper, comes from the Berta pattern. So the pants here were actually like a 1940s high-waisted pant, and I've made the pant in a number of different fabrics. And it's a good fit, and they're comfortable, and they go together really easily, and they're very sleek looking. You know, it's not an elastic waistband pant that, you know, looks like something whipped up in 10 minutes kind of thing, you know. Something I have found with the Decades of Style patterns, however, if you buy those patterns, you really need to make a model first, because they tend to be very long-waisted, and if you are like me and are a short-waisted person, then they don't line up properly. It was a really beautiful sundress pattern that I have, but I haven't been able to manipulate to fit me right. I made this gorgeous dress, and this was one of the ones I'm telling you about, that I made the dress before making a model, and then the finished product, it was like, oh, so I ended up giving the dress to somebody, and it fit her perfectly. So it was just like, okay, you can have the dress. I'm not going to be able to wear this without, you know, doing huge alterations, and doing the alterations was going to be more work than actually remaking the dress. So but I noticed that with the Decades of Style. So if you are very long-waisted, these patterns in particular will fit you most likely. The Berta patterns are pretty true to size. I'd say maybe they're a little small in the shoulders for me, and I'm not a big shouldered person. But other than that, the proportions on the Berta patterns are I can pretty much say, okay, I need to make a size 8, and that's that. I'm size 8. But I do find that I need to open up the sleeves a little bit. But I've got kind of big arms, so people like to make fun of my jiggly arms. Eventually, they'll probably get real big, and I'll have these wings like my grandma. I got my grandma's arms, so whenever I miss my grandma, all I have to do is shake my arm. Oh, hey, grandma. Anyway. And it doesn't matter how much weight I lose. It doesn't matter if I lift weights or not. I always have this, and this is always here. It's always there. Even when I was super skinny, when I weighed about 20 pounds less than I do now, you know, I still had this down here. Anyway, it doesn't bother me. If you're offended by my floppy arm, that's your problem, not mine, right? If you get too close and say anything rude, I'll smack you with it. Anyway, this is available on Amazon.com, and I created the book. I self-published it with an Amazon product called Create Space, and I've actually published a number of books this way. It's a really cool thing. And I can especially see it being, I don't know if teachers are using it, but I can see it being used, especially in college classrooms where teachers are designing their own curriculum and creating a lot of handouts. And when you're teaching the same course over and over again, rather than having to print those out all the time, you just make up a file. So CreateSpace was super, super easy to use. I'm not trying to do an advertisement for them, but I've made a number of products and been very, very happy with the result. It's fairly low tech, you don't have to be a Photoshop mastermind to do this. You basically, you create a PDF file of whatever document it is. So you put your book together in your word processor, whatever that is, whether you're using Microsoft or you're using AppleWorks. AppleWorks is what I use because I have a Mac and I like AppleWorks very much. And then you convert it into a PDF file, and then you upload the PDF file to your CreateSpace account, and which was very inexpensive to create. I think I created my CreateSpace account for like $65 or something like that, which you just pay the one time, and then you continually have the account, and it sets up all the marketing, and my books can be sold all over the internet then. And then you get an ISBN number and everything, and your royalties can be directly deposited into whatever account you set it up for. So, if you were a teacher and wanted to create a handout for your students to order at the beginning of the year, that's going to be like a published version of all of your worksheets and handouts and things that for all of your slide presentations and things that you're going to do. Very easy to do, and you could do it relatively inexpensively. You could order all of the books that you needed then at cost and sell them then to your students, or you could just tell your students to go online and then you get a royalty for that. So it's up to you. So this is one of them that I have. Another one last year I did a series of photo essay books, and the first of which is this one, Fishers of the Coast, Pacifica, California. And these are all representation of projects where I just took my cell phone camera and went out to sites and did like a photo essay of the site, and then created a portfolio book, and it tells a story of the place. So this one, each one's dedicated to a different place or a different person. This one was dedicated to my grandma Rose because I did this in August, and her birthday is in August. And I really, the cover is a photo that I took and on this trip, and there's some really quite beautiful photos. I like this grouping very much. It was under the pier there, and I thought the colors were beautiful. But this one is also available. Another one that I did was, after that one I decided I was going to call the series Classic California. So Fishers of the Coast is technically part of the Classic California photo essay series, but I didn't come to that epiphany until after creating that book. So then there's this one, Classic California Pescadero, September 2015. And same thing, just going out to these places. What I was looking at when I was doing these photo trips was tide pools and the life in the tide pools and what I was seeing on the beach. And the pictures are very beautiful, the water is very beautiful, the beach is very beautiful, and it's also very different than what it had been before in the past. I've found that beaches in California are quite sterile, and I mean that in exactly what the definition of that word sterile is. It's interesting because I've talked about this before, about there being fewer and fewer anemones and starfish and things in the water, and seeing more and more sea urchins and more jellyfish, and the rise in those sea life populations are speaking about the health of those tide pools and of those ocean communities there. So there's a lot of those things. Those jellyfish and those sea urchins eat dead and decaying life. They're the street cleaners, So when I got in the water in Pescadero, I didn't get up to my neck or anything. I just stood in the water and the water came up to my ankles. The water actually burned my skin a little bit. It was an interesting experience. Let me see if I have a nice picture here. I have lots of nice pictures, but I don't remember if I have a picture of my feet actually in the water or not. Here's a picture of my shadow when I was dropping my shoes just before I got in that water. But yeah. So there's this one, Pescadero. Let's see, what other ones do I have? Oh, yeah, that's right. There's this one, Classic California, Yosemite and Stanislaus Forest. And this, I took these photos in between raging fires. So it was interesting, there had been some fires up there at Yosemite, and I'd never been to Yosemite, and I decided I needed to go out there and see Yosemite before it was all burned down. And I got some very interesting photos of the trees and of past burns. There's some patterning pictures of charred tree bark. Let me see here. Oh, I particularly like these portraits that I did. I like the expression and the color palette on these next to the trees. I think it's a nice juxtaposition. But there's, let me see if I have a good one that'll show up. Maybe these ones here. You can see the trees, all the burned trees. It was eerie driving in, because even going in through Stanislaus, much of Stanislaus is burned down, and you have along the side of the road. This was a lot of the scenery, and I know forests often, they regenerate and they come back and things, but there's also a lot of devastation. And I would call this terrible beauty. I would call this terrible beauty. Yeah, so there's that one. And do I have one more? I think so. Oh yes, I do. I have one more in that series, and that one is Classic California, Santa Cruz Beach, and Boardwalk. I really like this one a lot. There's some great photos in here. The color is real punchy. I love the colors along the Santa Cruz Boardwalk. Real punchy. Yeah. Big old empty beach. This was, I think, just after school started. And so there weren't a lot of people around, but then there's also this. I mean, it's like there's signs like this everywhere telling you what you can't do. Like, okay. I enjoy the photos here. And, part of me wanting to do this series was about wanting to document the ocean changes that I was seeing, but it was also about being able to share my experience, my adventure experience here on the coast with my grandmother and grandfather, who are now in nursing care. My grandmother has had a stroke. My grandfather has Alzheimer's, and he doesn't remember who I am all the time, and my grandma can't really speak at all. Yeah, right there, right? Mm-hmm.
It's going better.
Or very much, maybe a word here or there. But a photo can say so much. And so doing this series, and I felt like I was able to share with them in a meaningful way. And it was really a lot of fun to do and easy to do. And anybody can purchase these online and see them. And they're fairly reasonably priced. So the first time I had ever used CreateSpace was to do my poetry collection. And this was back in 2012, I think. poetry and photography, 2011. I did this one in 2011. Sophia was pushed, but the moon broke her fall. And so like I said, this is a collection of poetry. Many of these poems I have set to music and I sing. I perform these pieces, not all of them, but a lot of them. This one was a painful process, but it was also a very fruitful process. I hesitate to use the word proud, but I feel good about this collection of poetry and about this work. And then I have I've used CreateSpace for a couple other things. So one of them being my screenplay. Yes, I wrote a screenplay. It could be adapted for stage or screen, and I've written music for it and everything. And this story, Marriage Americana, memory, trauma, and the worldwide struggle for equality collide in American battleground. American-born international artist and activist Louise lives with PTSD. Memories of trauma and current events leading to the PTSD nearly tear apart her multicultural marriage, but love prevails. A human trafficking ring is arrested, and the city of Oakland is brought one step closer to heaven. This screenplay is a work of fiction. Now, it is based on, many of the things that are in here are based on things that have happened in my life or things that have happened in the world, but it's not, this is not to be read or perceived as a memoir. This is not a memoir. This is a work of fiction. This is a piece of artwork. And you know, there are characters that are based on multiple people. It's never just one person. So if you happen to know me and you happen to read through this and you think, oh my God, that's me, that's me, that's me, it's probably not. It's probably a whole bunch of people. Or if you read this and you're like, that's not how that happened. It's like, well, no, it's not how everything exactly happened. This is a story. This is art. But this is it's kind of a cool thing, you know? I mean, it's very professional, it's bound. If I ever met somebody who does this kind of work, I could be like, hey, look, I have this really professional thing I can give you. Or if you're interested, you can just go order it online yourself. So anyway, there it is, Marriage Americana. And then last year I put together a periodical that is basically a portfolio of all the different types of work that I do. And it includes, you know, a listing of my published books. It has a cookbook section in it, it has a culinary section in it, and selections from blogging over the past year or so, and photography and paintings and jewelry and music, you know, all of these things that I do. And again, this is like a really, people say, what do you do? I can hand them this, and this is my portfolio. This is the kind of stuff I do. There's some information in this now that is not accurate, like the contact information. I really do need to make an updated version. But the artwork itself is still relevant, and I feel good about having created this as well. And yeah, so books. Anybody can do it. And like I said, I think that this is CreateSpace is a great tool for all artists and all people who are writers, and especially for teachers who are developing their own curriculum and want a professional and streamlined way of putting together their worksheets and stuff for their students, especially on a college level. And I just remember being in college and having teachers hand out stacks and stacks and stacks of Xeroxed, yeah, literally Xeroxed. I think I remember one teacher actually having used a mimeograph machine, if you know what that is, and it was just like such a mess, and you have to punch holes in them and stick them in a binder. You know, if you're gonna go to all the trouble of Xeroxing and going through all that for you students, just sit down and put them all together, and then you do it one time, and at the beginning of the year you say this, and this you gotta order, and it's like $6. You know, I mean, it's a win-win for everyone, right?
I offer my dance today for the ocean, for the healing of our ocean, and I thank the drummers for being present and for co-creating. And I ask that you pull in the spirit, the sound of the waves, the breach of a whale, the jump of the dolphins, as I call in that spirit with you. And Susu, in gratitude for your drum and for your leading, I have a copy of Fishers of the Coast. It's a photo documentary that I did recently of Pacifica. Thank you. Thank you.
watching the news reports coming in, people commenting, and on Britain leaving the European Union, and it's been interesting watching. I will say the dollar's up, but we'll see what this actually is going to mean for the future of trade. Now, the European Union was developed because Europe desired to be an on-par trading partner with the United States. And the European Union was an attempt to model the economy of the United States in Europe. However, there's a big difference. These issues that all of these different countries and what everybody's talking about, these nationalistic issues, in the United States, it's not that we don't have similar kinds of issues, but they are called something else. It's the debate around states' rights. We are a nation of states, whereas the European Union is a union of nation states. Do you understand the difference of what I'm saying here? And so, there was one commentary that I was listening to. They were talking so much about sovereignty, and sovereignty is really what the issue is there, because the European Charter, the European Union Charter, is not the same as the United States Constitution. So the United States Constitution applies to all states in the United States, and all states have agreed to be under the Constitution and be a sovereign nation with some specific rights that are left up to the states. But I might be a Californian, but that's just a way of identifying where in the United States I live. I mean, first and foremost, I'm an American. I'm a United States citizen. And the United States has always been developed that way, whereas the European Union was is attempting to create cohesion between nation states as opposed to becoming a unified nation of states. So it's confusing, can be confusing, but this what seems to be a little difference is actually a very, 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 very big difference. And so when when the countries within the EU, and in this case Great Britain, is talking about wanting to make their own laws and follow their own rule of law, this is what they're talking about. They're talking about national sovereignty. And it's very hard for people of the United States, I think, to understand that, and vice versa. I think it's very hard for people of Europe to understand U.S. perspective, because it's a very different beast. It's a very, very different beast. Our national identity is gigantic because we have a gigantic country that has, states that are like districts, and even within the states, then we have counties, and within the counties we have townships and boroughs and cities and municipalities and all these other little, and within cities, and those are broken down into districts, and the districts are broken down into neighborhoods, and it's just a matter of space. But the nations of Europe have been apprehensive about what they view as sacrificing their sovereignty to other European nations. And there are very different cultures within the different European nations. However, there are very different cultures within the United States as well. And so, it's not inconceivable that Europe could have a similar type of trade structure as the United States, but there's fundamental differences that would have to be changed, and those fundamental differences are what the people of Europe are really up in arms over, and specifically the people of Great Britain. It's very interesting to see that Scotland, people of Scotland overwhelmingly voted to stay in the EU, Scotland being a part of the United Kingdom currently. they are considering leaving Great Britain because they would like to remain in the European Union. It'll be very, very interesting to see how all of this translates, and especially as we're watching the shift of economic markets and how businesses are adjusting to the change, because it's not going to just be a change in laws. It's going to be a change in philosophy. It's a change in relationship. You know, when you divorce your spouse, it's no longer appropriate to sleep with them, right? So there's change. There's change in relationship, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out on a global scale.
Okay then, Amazing Saints in the key of B.
You read my mind!
Oh, when the saints come marching in, oh, when the saints come marching in, how I wish to be in that number. When the saints come marching in, Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound. Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saves a wretch like me. Amazing Grace, pour down on me. I once was lost, but now am found. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Amazing Grace, pour down on me.
'Twas grace that taught.
'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear. And grace my fears relieved. Amazing Grace, she poured down on me. How precious did that grace appear. How precious did that grace appear. The hour I first believed. Amazing Grace, pour down on me. When we've been there, 10,000 years, 10,000 years. When we've been there, 10,000 years. Bright shining as the sun. Amazing Grace, pour down on me. We've no less days, to sing God's praise, to sing God's praise. We've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. Amazing Grace for everyone. Oh, when in. When the saints come marching in, how I wish to be in their number. Oh, when the saints come marching in.
Beautiful.